The Echoes of Spring. Chapter 1. The village of Eldergrove, nestled on a small, remote island, lay in serene isolation, surrounded by the vast embrace of the ocean and thick, ancient forests that whispered secrets to those who would listen. Spring was just beginning to awaken, its gentle touch coaxing life back into the world after a long, harsh winter. The morning sun bathed the island in a warm, golden glow, casting long shadows that danced with the promise of renewal. The island's landscape was a tapestry of rugged cliffs, lush meadows, and dense woods, all teeming with the sounds and scents of nature stirring from its slumber. Wildflowers began to peek through the thawing ground, their vibrant colors a stark contrast to the subdued tones of the previous months. Birds sang melodies of new beginnings, flitting from branch to branch, while the sea breeze carried the tang of salt and the faint, rhythmic crash of distant waves. Thomas Reed stood at the edge of the village, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the sea met the sky. He was a man in his mid-40s, with graying hair that spoke of wisdom and experiences, and eyes that held a depth of sorrow and longing. His face, weathered by years of hardship, softened as he took in the beauty of his new surroundings. Eldergrove was a world apart from the life he had left behind, a place where he hoped to find solace and perhaps a fresh start. Thomas had come to the island seeking refuge from his troubled past, a past marked by personal losses and professional disappointments. As a schoolteacher, he had always found joy in nurturing young minds, but the city had become a place of painful memories and unfulfilled dreams. The decision to move to Eldergrove was not easy, but it was necessary. Here, in this secluded haven, he could begin to heal and rediscover the man he once was. His new home was a modest cottage at the village's edge, a quaint abode with whitewashed walls and a thatched roof. A small garden lay before it, now coming to life with the first signs of spring. Thomas had spent his first few days on the island settling in, unpacking his belongings, and acquainting himself with the simple rhythms of village life. The villagers, a close-knit community of fishermen, farmers, and artisans, had welcomed him with a mix of curiosity and cautious friendliness. Thomas breathed in deeply, letting the crisp, clean air fill his lungs. There was a tranquility here that he had never known, a peace that seemed to seep into his very bones. As he stood there, absorbing the sights and sounds of Eldergrove, he felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. This island, with its untamed beauty and timeless charm, might just be the sanctuary he needed. He turned back towards the village, where life was slowly beginning to stir. Smoke curled lazily from chimneys, and the distant murmur of voices hinted at the day's activities. Thomas felt a sense of anticipation mingled with his contemplative mood. The island's springtime awakening mirrored his own journey toward renewal, and he was ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. With one last look at the ocean's expanse, Thomas walked back towards his cottage. As he passed by, he noticed the first buds on the cherry blossom tree in his garden, their delicate pink petals poised to unfurl. It was a small sign, but it filled him with a quiet joy. Here, amidst the tranquility of Eldergrove, Thomas Reed would find his path forward, one step at a time, guided by the gentle whispers of spring. The arrival. Thomas Reed arrived on Eldergrove under a sky streaked with the hues of dawn, the island's silhouette emerging from the morning mist like a secret waiting to be discovered. The ferry ride had been uneventful, but as the boat approached the island's small dock, Thomas couldn't help but feel a mix of anxiety and anticipation. This was his new beginning, a chance to escape the shadows of his past and find peace in this remote sanctuary. As he stepped off the ferry, his feet finding purchase on the wooden planks of the dock, Thomas was met with the quiet curiosity of the villagers who had gathered to witness the arrival of the newcomer. They stood in small clusters, their eyes following his every move, assessing him with a blend of cautious curiosity and guarded friendliness. Thomas offered a polite nod and a tentative smile, unsure of how to bridge the gap between his solitude and their close-knit community. An elderly man with a kind face and a weathered cap approached Thomas. "Welcome to Eldergrove," he said, extending a hand. "I'm Henry Fletcher, the ferryman. If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask." "Thank you, Mr. Fletcher," Thomas replied, shaking the man's hand. "I'm Thomas Reed. It's a pleasure to meet you." Henry nodded, his eyes crinkling with warmth. "Come along, I'll show you to your new home." They walked through the village, a charming array of stone cottages and wooden houses, each with its own unique character. The scent of fresh bread wafted from a nearby bakery, mingling with the salty tang of the sea breeze. Villagers went about their morning routines, casting curious glances at Thomas as he passed. Some offered shy smiles, while others merely nodded in acknowledgement. Henry led Thomas to the edge of the village, where a quaint cottage stood nestled between a grove of cherry trees and a garden overlooking the sea. The cottage was modest but inviting, with whitewashed walls, a thatched roof, and a small porch that promised many tranquil evenings. The garden, though still waking from winter, hinted at a riot of colors to come. "This is it," Henry said, handing Thomas the key. "Welcome home." Thomas unlocked the door and stepped inside, taking in the cozy interior. The main room was furnished with simple but sturdy furniture, a stone fireplace dominating one wall. A small kitchen and a bedroom completed the cottage, each space filled with the comforting scent of cedarwood and the faint trace of salt air. As Thomas began to unpack his belongings, a soft knock on the door interrupted him. He opened it to find a young woman standing there, her presence immediately captivating. She had long, dark hair that cascaded over her shoulders in waves, and her eyes sparkled with warmth and intelligence. She held a basket of freshly picked flowers and a welcoming smile. "Hello," she said, her voice melodious and inviting. "You must be Thomas." "I'm Elena Marsh. I thought you might like these to brighten up your new home." Thomas took the basket, his heart lightening at her kindness. "Thank you, Elena. These are beautiful. Please, come in." Elena stepped inside, her eyes taking in the cottage's interior with an appreciative glance. "It's a lovely place," she said. "I hope you'll be happy here." "I'm sure I will be," Thomas replied, placing the basket on the kitchen table. "It's a far cry from the city, but that's exactly what I need." Elena nodded, her smile never wavering. "Eldergrove has a way of growing on you. If you need anything or have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. My family has been here for generations, and we know a thing or two about the island." As they chatted, Thomas felt a connection forming, a thread of understanding and friendship weaving between them. Elena's presence was like a breath of fresh air, and he found himself looking forward to getting to know her better. Later that afternoon, Thomas decided to explore the village. As he wandered through the narrow, winding streets, he came upon the local store, a quaint establishment brimming with everything from groceries to household goods. Behind the counter stood Margaret Hale, a woman in her 60s, with a warm, wise demeanor. Her gray hair was tied back in a neat bun, and her eyes twinkled with a mixture of curiosity and kindness. "Good afternoon," Margaret greeted him. "You must be Thomas Reed." "I'm Margaret Hale. Welcome to Eldergrove." "Thank you, Mrs. Hale," Thomas replied, grateful for the friendly reception. "It's good to be here." "Call me Margaret, please," she said, waving off the formality. "If you need anything, just let me know. I've run this store for more years than I care to remember, and there's not much that happens on this island that I don't know about." Thomas smiled, feeling a sense of comfort in her presence. "I'll keep that in mind, Margaret. It's nice to meet you. As Thomas left the store, he couldn't help but feel a growing sense of belonging. The villagers, with their cautious curiosity and tentative warmth, were slowly drawing him into their fold. And in this small, remote island village, surrounded by the ocean and dense forests, Thomas Reed began to feel the first stirrings of hope and the promise of a new beginning. The diary. It was on the third evening of his new life on Eldergrove that Thomas Reed made the discovery. He had spent the day acquainting himself with his cottage, organizing his belongings, and adding personal touches to the quaint space. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm, golden light through the windows, when he decided to explore the attic. The attic was a small, dusty room with low ceilings and a single, grimy window that offered a view of the sea. Thomas climbed the creaky wooden ladder and pulled himself into the dim space, coughing as the dust tickled his nose. He was about to leave when a glint of something metallic caught his eye from the corner of the room. Curiosity piqued, Thomas moved toward the source and found an old, wooden chest partially hidden beneath a moth-eaten blanket. He lifted the lid, revealing an assortment of forgotten items, a few old books, a tarnished silver candlestick, and, at the very bottom, a worn leather-bound diary. The diary was tied shut with a faded ribbon, its cover cracked and fragile from age. Thomas carefully untied the ribbon and opened the diary, the yellowed pages crackling softly. The first entry was dated March 1946, and as he began to read, he was drawn into the world of Jacob Finn, the previous resident of his cottage. March 15, 1946. Today marks the beginning of spring, and with it, a sense of hope that I have not felt in a long time. The winter was harsh and unrelenting, much like the turmoil within my own heart. I find solace in the routine of my days, teaching the children and tending to my small garden. Yet, beneath the surface, there is a longing that I cannot quell, a desire that remains unspoken and unfulfilled. Her name is Isabel. She is the wife of Robert Marsh, a good man and a friend, which makes my feelings for her all the more forbidden. She is beautiful, kind, and utterly beyond my reach. I see her often, as she brings her son to my classes, and each encounter leaves me both elated and despondent. Thomas felt a pang of recognition as he read Jacob's words. The sense of isolation, the struggle with inner turmoil, and the unspoken love, these were emotions he knew all too well. He turned the page, eager to learn more about Jacob's life and his connection to Isabel. March 22, 1946. The days grow longer, and the island is coming alive with the colors and sounds of spring. I saw Isabel today, her eyes alight with laughter as she played with her son in the meadow. She glanced my way, and for a moment, our eyes met. It was brief, but in that fleeting instant, I felt a connection that both frightened and thrilled me. I cannot allow myself to dwell on these feelings. It is a path that leads only to heartache and ruin. Yet, the more I try to distance myself, the stronger the pull becomes. I am caught between duty and desire, unable to reconcile the two. Thomas closed the diary, his mind reeling with the parallels between his life and Jacob's. Like Jacob, he had come to Eldergrove seeking peace, but had found himself drawn to someone unattainable, Elena, the vibrant and kind woman who had welcomed him so warmly. The diary's pages seemed to echo his own thoughts and emotions, creating a bridge across time that connected their lives. Over the next few days, Thomas read more of Jacob's diary, each entry revealing the depths of Jacob's internal struggle and his growing love for Isabel. The entries were filled with vivid descriptions of the island's beauty, the changing seasons, and the daily interactions that shaped Jacob's life. Through Jacob's words, Thomas felt as if he were living those moments himself, experiencing the same joys and sorrows. One evening, as Thomas sat by the fireplace with the diary in his lap, he pondered the uncanny similarities between his and Jacob's experiences. Both men had sought refuge on Eldergrove, both had been drawn to women who were out of their reach, and both had grappled with feelings of isolation and longing. It was as if the island itself had woven their destinies together, creating a tapestry of intertwined lives and shared emotions. Thomas felt a deep connection to Jacob, a kinship born of shared struggles and unfulfilled desires. The diary had become more than just a relic of the past, it was a mirror reflecting his own soul. As he turned the pages, he found comfort in knowing that he was not alone in his feelings, that another had walked a similar path before him. With each new entry, Thomas became more determined to understand Jacob's story and to find a way to resolve his own inner conflict. The diary had opened a window into the past, offering insights and lessons that he could apply to his own life. And so, as spring continued to unfold around him, Thomas resolved to embrace the journey ahead, guided by the echoes of Jacob Finn's words and the promise of new beginnings. Building relationships. The days on Eldergrove seemed to pass in a gentle, unhurried rhythm. As Thomas settled into his new life, he found himself drawn to the people of the island, particularly Elena Marsh and Margaret Hale. Their presence provided comfort and connection, two things he had been sorely lacking before his arrival. Bond with Elena. Elena had a vibrant energy that was contagious. Her laughter was like music, and her kindness seemed to radiate from her. Thomas found himself looking forward to their conversations, which often took place during long walks along the island's meandering paths, or while sitting on the rocks by the shore, watching the waves crash against the cliffs. One sunny afternoon, Elena invited Thomas to explore the island's hidden treasures. They hiked through dense forests, discovering secret clearings where wildflowers bloomed in a riot of colors. Elena pointed out various plants and birds, sharing her extensive knowledge of the island's ecosystem. Thomas listened intently, mesmerized by her passion and the way her eyes sparkled with life. As they walked, they shared their stories. Thomas spoke of his life in the city, his career as a schoolteacher, and the personal losses that had driven him to seek refuge on Eldergrove. Elena, in turn, told him about her family's deep roots on the island, her dreams of traveling the world, and her love for the simple, unhurried life she led. "I feel like I've known you for much longer than just a few weeks," Elena said one evening as they watched the sunset from a hilltop. "There's something about you that feels familiar." Thomas felt it too, an inexplicable pull towards Elena. It was as if the island itself had woven their lives together, creating a bond that was both comforting and profound. He found himself opening up to her in ways he hadn't with anyone else, sharing his hopes, fears, and the pain of his past. "I feel the same way," Thomas admitted, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "Coming here, meeting you, it feels like the beginning of something new, something I've been searching for without even realizing it." Elena smiled, her hand gently brushing against his. "Perhaps Eldergrove has a way of bringing people together, of healing old wounds." Guidance from Margaret. While Elena provided companionship and a burgeoning sense of hope, Margaret Hale offered wisdom and insight into the island's rich history. Thomas often visited her store, where they would sit by the fireplace and talk over cups of tea. Margaret was a fountain of knowledge, her stories painting vivid pictures of Eldergrove's past. She spoke of the island's early settlers, the hardships they endured, and the close-knit community that had developed over the years. Her tales were filled with love, loss, and resilience, echoing the very essence of the island itself. One afternoon, as Thomas browsed through the store's shelves, Margaret handed him a dusty old book. "I think you might find this interesting," she said with a knowing smile. "It's a collection of stories about the island, written by various residents over the years." Thomas flipped through the pages, his curiosity piqued. Thank you, Margaret. I'll definitely read it. As they settled into their usual seats by the fire, Margaret began to speak about Jacob Finn. Jacob was a good man, but he had a troubled heart. He fell in love with Isabel Marsh, a married woman, and it tore him apart. His story is one of the many woven into the fabric of this island. Thomas listened intently, recognizing the name from Jacob's diary. Isabel Marsh, he murmured. I've read about her in Jacob's diary. It's clear he cared for her deeply. Margaret nodded, her expression somber. Their love was doomed from the start, but it left an indelible mark on both of them. Jacob's diary is a testament to his struggles, his longing, and ultimately, his acceptance of the situation. It's a tragic tale, but also one of resilience and finding peace. Thomas felt a deep connection to Jacob's story, seeing reflections of his own life in the words of a man who had lived decades before. I feel like I understand him, Thomas said quietly. His struggles, his feelings of isolation and longing, they're so similar to my own. Margaret placed a reassuring hand on his arm. Eldergrove has a way of bringing these stories to the surface, of helping us see that we're not alone in our experiences. Use Jacob's story as a guide, Thomas. Let it help you find your own path to peace and fulfillment. As Thomas left the store that evening, he felt a sense of clarity and purpose. The connections he was forging with Elena and Margaret, along with the insights from Jacob's diary, were guiding him toward healing and renewal. He realized that his journey on Eldergrove was not just about escaping his past, but also about embracing the possibilities of the present and the future. With each passing day, Thomas grew more intertwined with the island's life and its people. The bonds he was forming were deep and meaningful, and he felt a growing sense of belonging and hope. Eldergrove, with its beauty and its secrets, was slowly transforming from a place of refuge into a true home. Mysterious events. The tranquility of Eldergrove began to take on an unsettling edge as Thomas noticed strange occurrences around the island. At first, they were subtly a whisper in the wind that seemed to carry his name, a fleeting shadow at the edge of his vision, or the eerie sensation of being watched when he was alone. These moments were disconcerting, but Thomas tried to brush them off as tricks of the mind, remnants of his past anxieties. One evening, as he walked along the beach, the whispering grew louder, almost insistent. The wind carried a soft, mournful tune that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Thomas paused, straining to listen, his heart pounding. The whispers seemed to form words, elusive and fragmented, but undeniably real. Jacob. Isabel, lost. Thomas shivered, pulling his coat tighter around him. He quickened his pace, eager to return to the safety of his cottage. But the unease lingered, following him like a shadow. That night, as he lay in bed, he couldn't shake the feeling that the island was trying to communicate with him, to reveal secrets long buried. Diary revelations. Determined to make sense of the mysterious events, Thomas delved deeper into Jacob Finn's diary. He spent hours by the fire, reading Jacob's words, hoping to uncover the truth behind the whispers and shadows. April 3, 1946. I saw Isabel again today. Her laughter filled the air, but her eyes held a sadness I recognized all too well. We spoke briefly, our conversation polite and guarded, but the connection between us was undeniable. I cannot continue like this, torn between my love for her and my loyalty to Robert. It is a torment that I cannot escape. April 10, 1946. Isabel confided in me today. She spoke of her unhappiness, her longing for freedom. I wanted to tell her everything, to confess my feelings, but I couldn't. Instead, I listened, offering what comfort I could. It is a cruel irony that we find solace in each other's company, yet cannot be together. April 20, 1946. The weight of my love for Isabel is becoming unbearable. I see her everywhere, in my dreams, in the shadows of the trees, in the whispers of the wind. I fear that my heart will break if I cannot find a way to be with her. But how? How can I betray Robert, a man who has been nothing but kind to me? The entries painted a picture of Jacob's deep, forbidden love for Isabel and his growing despair. Thomas felt a profound empathy for Jacob, understanding the agony of loving someone he could never truly have. As he read on, the sense of connection between their lives grew stronger. Connection to present. One afternoon, while visiting Margaret Hale, Thomas shared his discoveries from Jacob's diary. Margaret listened intently, her expression growing somber as he spoke. "There's something you should know, Thomas," she said after a long pause. Isabel Marsh was Elena's grandmother. Thomas felt a jolt of realization. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place. "Elena is Isabel's granddaughter," he repeated, trying to comprehend the significance. Margaret nodded. "Yes." Isabel's love for Jacob was a well-kept secret, known only to a few. After Jacob left the island, Isabel stayed with Robert, but her heart was always with Jacob. Elena's mother, Claire, was Isabel and Robert's daughter, but it's said that Isabel never truly found happiness. She passed away when Elena was very young. Thomas felt a surge of emotion, sadness for Isabel and Jacob's unfulfilled love, and a deeper understanding of the island's secrets. "The strange events I've been experiencing," he said slowly, "they must be connected to Jacob and Isabel's story." Margaret sighed, her eyes reflecting a wisdom born of years. "The island holds many secrets, Thomas. It's a place where the past lingers, and sometimes, those who have gone before us try to reach out. Perhaps Jacob and Isabel's spirits are still seeking resolution." Thomas's thoughts raced. Elena, with her vibrant energy and kindness, was directly linked to the tragic love story of Jacob and Isabel. The island's whispers and shadows seemed to be guiding him towards something, perhaps a way to bring peace to the restless spirits of the past. As he left Margaret's store, Thomas felt a renewed sense of purpose. The island's secrets were becoming clearer, and he was determined to uncover the truth. He would talk to Elena, share what he had learned, and together they would find a way to honor the love and pain of their predecessors. In doing so, Thomas hoped to not only bring closure to Jacob and Isabel, but also to find his own path to healing and fulfillment on the enigmatic island of Eldergrove. The island's secrets. Mysterious events. As Thomas settled into his life on Eldergrove, the island's tranquility was increasingly punctuated by unsettling occurrences. At first, it was merely the sense of being watched, a feeling that prickled the back of his neck when he walked through the woods or stood by the sea. He would turn quickly, expecting to find someone there, but always he was met with only empty air and rustling leaves. The whispers began next. Soft and indistinct, they seemed to float on the breeze, just beyond the edge of comprehension. Sometimes they sounded like the wind itself, other times like distant voices, calling his name. They seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once, filling him with a sense of eerie anticipation. He often found himself pausing, straining to catch the elusive words, but they always faded before he could grasp their meaning. One night, as Thomas sat reading Jacob's diary by the fire, the shadows in the room seemed to deepen and shift. He glanced up, feeling a sudden chill, and saw a flicker of movement out of the corner of his eye. Heart pounding, he stood and looked around, but there was nothing, only the play of firelight on the walls. Shaking off the unease, he returned to the diary, determined to find answers in Jacob's words. Diary revelations. Jacob's diary was a window into a life filled with unspoken emotions and forbidden desires. Each entry drew Thomas deeper into Jacob's world, revealing the depths of his love for Isabel and the torment of their impossible situation. April 25, 1946. Isabel and I met by the old oak tree today, hidden from prying eyes. She spoke of her unhappiness, her longing for freedom from a marriage that stifled her spirit. I wanted to tell her everything, to confess my love, but I held back. It is a cruel fate to love someone you cannot have. I fear my heart will break under the weight of this unspoken truth. May 10, 1946. The island itself seems to echo my sorrow. The wind carries whispers of my pain, and the shadows lengthen with my despair. I am haunted by what could have been, by the love that will never be realized. Isabel's eyes, so full of sorrow and longing, haunt my dreams. How can I continue like this, trapped between duty and desire? The more Thomas read, the more he felt a deep connection to Jacob. Their lives, though separated by decades, seemed to mirror each other in profound ways. Both had come to Eldergrove seeking refuge, both had found love that was out of reach, and both were haunted by their inner turmoil. Connection to present. One afternoon, as Thomas and Elena walked along the rocky shore, he shared his latest discoveries from Jacob's diary. Elena listened quietly, her eyes reflecting the sadness of the story. Isabel Marsh, Thomas said, looking out at the waves. She was your grandmother. Elena nodded slowly. Yes, my mother told me about her. She said Isabel was a kind and loving woman, but there was always a sadness about her, a longing that never went away. Thomas took a deep breath. I think Jacob Finn was in love with her. His diary entries, they speak of a forbidden love, a deep connection that was never fulfilled. Elena's eyes widened. Jacob Finn, the man who lived in your cottage before? The one who disappeared? Yes, Thomas said. He left the island, but his heart remained here, with Isabel. And now, I think their spirits are still trying to find peace. Elena looked at him, a mix of curiosity and sadness in her gaze. Do you think that's why we've been experiencing these strange events? The whispers, the shadows, could they be connected to Jacob and Isabel? Thomas nodded. I believe so. The island holds their secrets, their unresolved emotions. And somehow, they've become intertwined with us. Elena reached out and took his hand. Then we need to help them find peace. If their spirits are still here, they deserve closure. Together, they resolved to uncover the truth and bring resolution to Jacob and Isabel's story. Thomas continued to read the diary, hoping to find a way to ease the restless spirits. He and Elena spent hours discussing the past, piecing together the fragments of the love that had haunted their families for so long. As they delved deeper, they discovered a shared history that linked their own lives to the island's secrets. Thomas learned that his great-grandfather had been a close friend of Jacob Finn, and had corresponded with him even after Jacob left Eldergrove. The letters, preserved in an old trunk in Margaret's store, revealed a deeper connection between Thomas's family and the island. The discovery brought Thomas and Elena closer, their bond strengthened by the shared mission to uncover the truth and honor the memories of their ancestors. They began to feel that their own meeting on Eldergrove was not a mere coincidence, but a part of the island's intricate tapestry of fate. As they worked together to solve the mystery, the whispers in the wind grew softer, the shadows less menacing. It was as if the island was acknowledging their efforts, guiding them toward the answers they sought. In the process, Thomas and Elena found themselves healing, their own past wounds beginning to mend. Through the revelations of Jacob's diary and their shared journey, Thomas and Elena realized that the island's secrets were not just about the past, they were a bridge to the future, offering a chance for redemption, love, and new beginnings. And as they stood together on the shores of Eldergrove, watching the sun set over the sea, they felt a profound sense of peace and purpose, ready to face whatever the future held. The climax. Confrontation. The unease that had settled over Eldergrove intensified as Thomas and Elena delved deeper into the island's past. One evening, as they sat by the fire in Thomas's cottage, he decided it was time to confront Elena about the secrets they had uncovered. "Elena," Thomas began, his voice steady but filled with urgency, "there's something we need to talk about. It's about your grandmother Isabel and Jacob Finn." Elena looked up from the fire, her expression serious. "I've been thinking about them too. The diary, the whispers. I feel like they're trying to tell us something." Thomas took a deep breath. "I've read more of Jacob's diary, and it's clear he was deeply in love with Isabel. But there's something else. Margaret mentioned that Isabel's spirit is said to still haunt the island, searching for peace. Do you know anything about that?" Elena nodded slowly, her eyes reflecting the weight of the past. "My mother used to tell me stories about Isabel. She said that Isabel never found happiness, even after Jacob left. It's believed that her spirit lingers, unable to move on, because of the unresolved love and guilt. And Jacob, he disappeared, but maybe he never really left either." Thomas leaned forward, his heart pounding. "Elena, I think we need to do something to help them. We need to find a way to bring them peace." A desperate plea. That night, as Thomas lay in bed, he was awakened by a chilling sensation. The air in the room seemed to grow colder, and a faint, glowing figure appeared at the foot of his bed. It was the ghost of Jacob Finn, his expression one of desperation and sorrow. "Thomas," Jacob's voice was a whisper, carried on the wind, "please, you must help me. Isabel's spirit is trapped, tormented by our unfulfilled love and the pain she endured. You are the only one who can set things right." Thomas sat up, his heart racing. "What can I do? How can I help you and Isabel find peace?" Jacob's ghost moved closer, his form flickering like a candle in the wind. "There is a ritual, a way to release our spirits. You must burn the diary, the physical manifestation of our pain and longing, and scatter the ashes into the sea. Only then can we be free." Thomas felt a surge of determination. "I'll do it. I'll help you, Jacob. I promise." The final act. The next morning, Thomas told Elena about his encounter with Jacob's ghost. Together, they gathered the necessary items for the ritual: Jacob's diary, a small brazier for the fire, and a container to hold the ashes. They made their way to the old oak tree, the place where Jacob and Isabel had often met in secret. As they stood beneath the ancient branches, the air seemed charged with a palpable energy, as if the island itself was aware of what they were about to do. Thomas placed the diary in the brazier and looked at Elena, who nodded in silent support. He struck a match and set the diary alight. The flames quickly consumed the pages, the fire crackling and sparking as it devoured the words that had held Jacob's and Isabel's emotions for so long. Thomas and Elena watched as the diary turned to ash, the smoke rising into the sky like a spirit being set free. When the fire had burned out, Thomas carefully collected the ashes. They walked to the cliff's edge, where the sea stretched out before them, vast and eternal. Standing at the precipice, Thomas held the container of ashes in his hands, feeling the weight of the past and the hope for the future. He looked at Elena, and together they whispered a prayer for Jacob and Isabel, for their love and their release. Then, with a gentle motion, Thomas scattered the ashes into the wind. The breeze carried them out over the water, where they were embraced by the sea. As the last of the ashes disappeared, a profound sense of peace settled over Thomas and Elena. The air seemed lighter, the whispers silenced, and the shadows no longer menacing. It was as if the island itself was breathing a sigh of relief. In that moment, Thomas felt a deep connection to Eldergrove, to its past and its future. He looked at Elena, and saw in her eyes the same sense of resolution and hope. They had done it. They had freed the spirits of Jacob and Isabel, and in doing so, had forged their own path toward healing and new beginnings. Together, they turned away from the cliff and walked back toward the village, hand in hand, ready to embrace whatever the future held. The island's secrets had been revealed, its restless spirits laid to rest, and the promise of a new dawn rose on the horizon. Resolution. Peace restored. In the days following the ritual, a palpable sense of peace settled over Eldergrove. The island, once haunted by whispers and shadows, seemed to breathe easier, its beauty unmarred by the specters of the past. The villagers, sensitive to the island's moods, noticed the change. They remarked on the unusually bright spring flowers, the particularly melodious birdsong, and the way the sunlight danced on the water, as if the island itself was rejoicing in its newfound tranquility. Thomas felt the difference keenly. The oppressive weight that had lingered in the air was gone, replaced by a serene calmness. The nights were no longer filled with eerie whispers, and the shadows that once played tricks on his mind now simply marked the passage of day to night. It was as if the island had been reborn, free from the burdens of unfulfilled love and unresolved pain. Margaret Hale, ever perceptive, approached Thomas one afternoon as he tended to his garden. "You've done something remarkable, Thomas," she said, her voice filled with warmth. "The island feels lighter. I think Jacob and Isabel have finally found their peace." Thomas smiled, the truth of her words settling in his heart. "It wasn't just me, Margaret. Elena and I did it together. The island needed us to listen, to understand, and to help." Margaret nodded, her eyes twinkling with wisdom. "Sometimes, that's all any of us need." New beginnings. The bond between Thomas and Elena deepened in the aftermath of their shared experience. They spent more time together, exploring the island with a new sense of freedom and joy. Their walks were filled with laughter and conversation, their silences comfortable and companionable. One evening, as they watched the sunset from the hilltop where they had once discussed their ancestors, Thomas reached for Elena's hand. "I'm so glad I came here," he said softly. "Meeting you, learning about Jacob and Isabel, it's changed everything." Elena squeezed his hand, her smile radiant. "I feel the same way. This island, our connection, it feels like fate." Their relationship blossomed, grounded in the understanding and support they had offered each other. The island, no longer a place of refuge from their pasts, had become a home where they could build a future together. They began to make plans, talking about dreams and aspirations, about the life they wanted to create on Eldergrove. Thomas's reflection. Thomas found solace in writing, his thoughts flowing onto the pages of a new diary. He documented his journey to Eldergrove, the discoveries and revelations, the connections and transformations. Each entry was a reflection on the lessons he had learned and the hope he felt for the future. June 1, 2024. Today marks 3 months since I arrived on Eldergrove. What began as a quest for solitude and escape has turned into a journey of healing and connection. The island's secrets, once heavy with sorrow, have been revealed and laid to rest. Jacob and Isabel's spirits are at peace, and so am I. Elena and I have found something beautiful here. Our bond, forged through shared experiences and mutual support, is strong and true. Together, we are building a life filled with love, hope, and endless possibilities. As I look out over the sea, I am filled with gratitude for this island, for its people, and for the chance to start anew. Eldergrove is no longer just a refuge, it is home. Thomas closed the diary, feeling a sense of completion. He looked out the window at the sun setting over the ocean, the sky ablaze with colors. Elena was in the garden, her laughter mingling with the evening breeze. He knew that his journey was far from over, but with Elena by his side and the island's peace restored, he was ready to embrace whatever came next. The island of Eldergrove, with its rich history and timeless beauty, had given him more than he had ever expected. It had shown him the power of love and redemption, the importance of understanding and forgiveness, and the joy of new beginnings. As Thomas joined Elena in the garden, he knew that their story, much like the island itself, was just beginning, filled with hope and endless possibilities. Epilogue. Years later. The years had passed gently on Eldergrove, each season a reminder of the island's enduring beauty and the timeless lessons it held. Thomas and Elena, now married, had built a life filled with love, laughter, and a deep connection to the land and its history. Their cottage, once a place of solitude and refuge, was now a warm and bustling home, filled with the sounds of their growing family. Thomas sat on the porch, his hair now silvered with age, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of gold and crimson. Beside him, Elena sat knitting, her presence as comforting and familiar as the rhythm of the waves against the shore. Their children played in the garden, their laughter echoing the joy and freedom that Eldergrove had come to represent. As twilight descended, Thomas called the children to his side. "Come, gather around," he said, his voice warm with affection. "It's time for a story." The children, eager and curious, settled around their parents, their eyes wide with anticipation. Thomas began, his voice carrying the weight of the years and the wisdom they had brought. "Many years ago, when I first came to this island, I was a man searching for peace, much like Jacob Finn before me. Eldergrove was a place of secrets and whispers, a land where the past lingered like shadows in the wind. But it was also a place of beauty and hope, where new beginnings could be forged from old sorrows." Elena smiled, her eyes meeting Thomas's in a moment of shared understanding. She picked up the story, her voice weaving the tale with grace and tenderness. Jacob Finn and Isabel Marsh were two souls whose love was both beautiful and tragic. Their spirits remained on the island, seeking resolution, until one day, your father and I discovered their story. Thomas continued, "We read Jacob's diary, felt his pain and his love, and with the help of the island's wisdom, we performed a ritual to set their spirits free. It was a moment of redemption, not just for them, but for us as well. The island's peace was restored, and so was our hope." The children listened, their faces reflecting the wonder and gravity of the tale. The oldest, a girl with Elena's bright eyes, asked, "What happened to Jacob and Isabel?" "They found peace," Thomas said softly. "Their love, though never fulfilled in life, was honored and set free in death. And in doing so, they left us a legacy, a reminder that love and forgiveness can heal even the deepest wounds." Elena added, "And that is why we cherish Eldergrove, why we honor its history and its stories. This island is more than our home, it is a testament to the power of love, redemption, and new beginnings." As the night settled in, Thomas and Elena held their children close, the warmth of their family a living testament to the lessons of the past. The cottage, the garden, the very air of Eldergrove, seemed to hum with a sense of fulfillment and peace. Thomas looked at his family, his heart swelling with gratitude. "Remember, my dear ones, that the echoes of spring and the lessons of love and redemption are always with us. Eldergrove is a part of us, and we are a part of it. Its stories are our stories, and as long as we remember them, we honor those who came before us." Elena nodded, her smile radiant in the dim light. "And we will continue to share these tales, to teach you the value of love, understanding, and hope. For these are the true treasures of Eldergrove. The children, their hearts full of the island's magic and their parents' love, nodded in agreement. They knew that they were the next chapter in Eldergrove's story, the future stewards of its secrets and its beauty. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Thomas and Elena sat together, their hands entwined, watching over their children. The island, with its rich history and serene present, had given them more than they had ever dreamed. And in return, they had given it their love, their stories, and their legacy. Eldergrove, timeless and eternal, remained a place of peace and wonder, its secrets and lessons passed down through generations, ensuring that the echoes of spring and the power of love and redemption would never be forgotten.